What changed my life more than anything was definitely the IDF. When I was stationed in the Beaufort Castle in Lebanon, everything changed for me. Up to then, I thought life was a game. I was young. Thought I was invincible. And when you see war and when you see like things that truly affect you and change your life, I knew things were going to be different. At that time, I only thought I was going to be a warrior. The day that I got stationed inside Lebanon, I said, all right, this is who I am. I'm a Golani warrior, I'm an IDF warrior. I feel good here, I feel at home, this is what I was meant to be. So from that moment on, I pretty much knew I would live the rest of my life as a warrior. Now, where that took me, it took me to different direction. But from that day on, pretty much, it was the day that changed me. Up to September 11, I actually did not want to teach what I teach today. I was teaching regular martial arts in America, if you want to be technical. I was teaching Taekwondo, and I was very successful at that, and I was very comfortable with that. When September 11 hit America, the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, they're here now. And at that moment, I had to make a decision as an American. I felt like, okay, I'm here many years, my home is here, my children are here, my family is here, and this is affecting me. After September 11 hit, I felt it a responsibility to first teach military units, help with military units, federal agencies, some law enforcement, and the more and more the current events are getting, in my opinion, worse, the more I think it's a responsibility of me and also a call of me to teach what I teach. But originally I was very reluctant because of the responsibility behind it. I did not know if it was going to fall in the proper hands. I am very selective. I profile everybody that goes through my training. If I feel any hesitation on the person I'm teaching that it's going to be used for wrong reasons, I won't personally teach them. So yes, very reluctant, but September 11 pretty much changed everything. I've turned down a lot of opportunities that most people would have jumped on. I have one concern always, is that if what I teach is going for the right people. Okay, and I'll explain. In the IDF, there's such thing as called as Toar HaNeshek. Toar HaNeshek in Hebrew means the purity of the weapon. In other words, every kill must be pure and justified. And if you would be in front of God, would you feel comfortable to say, I had to take that life? So I'm very selective with that. I turned down many opportunities. I've had people come to me, I'm being honest, wackos, teach me how to kill somebody in 3 seconds, money is not an issue, I'll give you whatever. I had people that came from criminal background, very high end, and said, all right, we want to hire you to do this, this and that. I will not teach anybody that I think will end up being terrorism, criminalism, or anything that's not for the good of humanity. So to me, I feel that's the number one integrity. The second integrity is to Israel. I will not bastardize, I won't teach it, dilute it, or water it down. If somebody comes to me and says to me, all right, teach it to me, but teach it to me like this because we're interested in making money, I'm not interested. I want to teach the proper product, the way it was taught to me, the way it saved my life when I had to deploy it. I also further developed it when I came to America. I believe I'm the evolution of Israeli martial arts. I believe I took it to a next level. And the integrity of what I teach has always been my priority over any opportunity. Now, if the opportunity comes to me and meets that integrity and the mission of what I teach, which is basically every human being that's a good person has the right to defend themselves, being a civilian, law enforcement, or soldier, I will teach them. And that's basically been always my motto, integrity in what I teach. In the beginning, after September 11, it was very small groups, very Homeland Security, specific units, this and that. And I felt that there was no need for the general public and the civilians to learn what I have to offer. As current affairs are changing and terrorism is growing and becoming at our doorstep, okay, if you look at the news, it's happening all over the place. So now, we always say in Israel, the best first responder is the person on the scene. Now, people being attacked are no longer overseas. It's happening here, and I would feel horrible if somebody comes to me and says to me, okay, I want to learn how to defend myself. And I said, no, you can't. You're not one of the selected ones. And 3 months later, I see them on the news that they got killed because I didn't teach them. So I think the current affair changed everything. I believe terrorism is knocking on America's doors. I think it's here. I think most people are naive to it. Then you have the people that are paranoid about it, so they take it overboard. I think I'm very focused and very realistic about the threats, and I want to make sure that anybody who reaches out to me that is a responsible adult, a responsible civilian, a responsible citizen of America has a right to learn what I have to teach and should learn what I have to teach, because I've lived a warrior life my entire life, and I feel no fear. I feel completely prepared for anything that would happen on a violent level, and I think that is a treasure I need to share with more people because of what's happening today in America. Here's the deal. I believe if there will be a collapse and if things go wrong, a big percentage of the population will turn into sheep, just because the fear factor that they're not ready and they're not prepared for what's coming. It's very simple. When something drastic happens, some people rise, some people hide, and some people fall. Okay, so most people that are not prepared will try to hide or run away from it. And basically they'll keep looking for more locations to be safe. Then you have people that will just fall victim to it. And finally you have people that will rise. It's very simple. When something happens, there's the event, there is the shock, there is the overreaction and the proper reaction. People that are trained do not fall into shock and don't overreact. The event and proper reaction. So I believe that most people are not ready. I believe some people think they're ready and not ready because they're not realistic about it and they're not training the proper divisions of training they should be training. And basically most people will fall just to sheep. And I think it's my destination or my destiny or my call to make as many people as ready as possible for when that will happen. When something will collapse, there will be resources. It'll go down to almost primal. It'll go down to food, water. It will go down to people fight over transportation. So at the end of the day, people need to be prepared on a level that can I survive with the primal, or I don't want to say primal, but with the basics. If you cannot fight for basic resources, you will not have those resources. And I can tell you one thing, when people don't have basic resources, things turn ugly very fast. If you start fighting over food and fighting over water, the most civilized people will turn uncivilized. And then because of, if just for an example, if there's only enough resource for 30 people and there's 500 people, guess what? 470 people are not getting that resource. So the 30 people that would get that resource would fight for it, and then they have to secure it. So I've seen hunger. I'll use the example of the Middle East. You cannot make a terrorist of somebody that's fat and happy. Most terrorists, suicide bombers, they are miserable, they're brainwashed, that they're miserable because of the opposition, and it starts with famine. In other words, they make them hungry, because if you're fat and happy, why should I be a suicide bomber? So fighting over basic resources when things go wrong becomes the basic survival skills. The major component that's lacking in self-defense training, I feel, is the reality component. Okay, I'll explain. A lot of people claim to teach self-defense and they get all these courses and this and that, and the problem is the reality component is not in there. Okay, what they do is they pull in out of all kinds of data or theory and say, okay, this must happen, this might happen, and they build a curriculum. That's number one. The second thing is the stress and aggression training. There is no such thing as beating violence without violence, but the violence has to be an organized violence, okay? And unless you've been around people who have dealt with real violence, you cannot duplicate that, okay? You cannot, it's like saying, I'm gonna teach you how it feels to have a baby. I'm not a woman. I didn't have a baby. How can I teach you how to have a baby? In other words, I can teach you what's gonna happen in a violent environment because I've been in a very volatile, violent environment. So a lot of the self-defense training out there is lacking the reality. Also, in my opinion, there's a lot of people will be afraid to defend themselves because of the consequences. In other words, oh, I can't do that because I'm going to get in trouble. When it will be worst case scenario, life depending, extreme violence, if you hesitate because of consequences, the enemy has the advantage. There's a lot of people who are too busy thinking about, okay, you can do this, but you can't do this. Okay, if you in a violent situation where the enemy is savage, where the enemy is brainwashed, when the enemy is willing to die in the process of attacking you, any hesitation mentally by deciding, in other words, by decision mentally, in other words, not even physically, I want to defend myself or I'm afraid to defend, but am I going to defend myself or I'm going to try to get out of this? Okay, so I think those are things that are lacking, the reality component, and people are not willing or don't understand what it takes to go all out when your life really depends on it. There is nothing more important at that moment but you defending yourself effectively. A lot of times when people think something's wrong, like I said earlier, they'll either hide or either they'll think, it's going to pass, or either they're going to have to be faced with it. So awareness is connected to tactics. Without awareness, you can have a million tactics, you're dead. And without tactics, when there's something wrong, you can't do anything about it. So they're interconnected, but I would say most people have more of a weakness with awareness than with tactics. A lot of people in America actually train. They do martial arts, mixed martial arts. They seek out survival training, shooting, going to range. A lot of people buy guns. A lot of people train, but a lot of people are not aware of what to look for when something goes wrong. I created a Gana because I felt there was a problem in real estate in Israeli martial arts. I'll explain. Israeli martial arts run into two styles, Krav Maga and Hissardut. Krav Maga is very, very good at self-defense. Hissardut is very good at fighting. However, in Israel, used to be old school, if you do Krav Maga, you couldn't train Hissardut because it was not loyal, or if you did Hissardut, you shouldn't train Krav Maga because you're not loyal to one or the other. I don't care about real estate. I don't care about rank in styles. I care about if it can make me a better warrior, I will cross-train. So Agana is a cross-training system between two Israeli martial arts and the Israeli Special Forces Lotar School, which is the counter-terrorist school. So I took two martial arts that were kind of almost like a judo against karate. They have competition, or like they like kung fu against karate. You do kung fu, I do karate. So it was kind of a style thing. But what I did is I completely omitted those real estate and say, I'm going to take the self-defense from Krav Maga, I'm going to take the fighting from Hissardut, and I'm going to supercharge it with Israeli Special Forces tactic that is taught today in counter-terrorist units. So what I wanted to do is something that's totally realistic for worst case scenario, for people to be able to defend themselves empty-hand, knives, and guns. You cannot find that only in one system. It has to be a hybrid, and it has to all have the same logistic and the same objective. So that's why I created Agana. I wanted something more realistic, more complete. We are an objective and principle system versus a technique system. Okay, in most systems, you learn techniques, and according to the technique, you progress in the system. Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're collecting technique and technique and technique. Agana is not like that. Agana is an objective type of system with principles. In other words, I don't care about the technique at the moment. At the moment, there is an objective, and then I will look for a principle, and if it does not go against the principles, I can deploy the tactic. So it's a much more tactical, strategic way of looking at self-defense, and it's not, let me show you how you should do it. I'm going to teach you how you should think how to do it, not I'm thinking for you. A lot of martial arts, self-defense system, you're basically mimicking something that others did. I don't want my practitioners to mimic what I do. I want my practitioners to adapt and overcome what they dealing with principles and tools that I give them. So that's the major difference between us and others. Okay, true self-defense has to be trained on a few fronts. Front number one, you have to be physically tough, okay? And that is an issue that is a challenge to many people. A lot of people want to learn self-defense without making themselves tough. Okay, your durability in a fight is very important. So the first thing you need to be is what I call fit for fighting. Fit to fight or combat fitness. In other words, you gotta be a warrior in your body. Your body is like a machine. The most advanced machine on the planet is the human body. But it can be used for different things. So I use it for warrior skills. So the first thing you need to be is actually be able to deploy fighting, and you have to train to be fit to fight. The second thing you need to learn is the actual techniques. You have to know what you're doing and what to do and when to do it. And finally, you have to interject the stress and the aggression in there. If I teach you self-defense and you are very fit, but I never give you vaccination of stress and I never make you express your aggression in training, we never know if you're going to be able to deploy it when the pressure is on, under pressure. So you gotta be fit to fight, you gotta be durable, you gotta learn what to do, when to do, and how to do it, and then you gotta interject stress and aggression training. That's how you do true self-defense. If not, you're not ready. To train for a worst case scenario, you have to go backward. In other words, what you need to do is you need to say, this is the worst case scenario, and you have to take it backward. You don't build up to it, you come back from it, okay? So that's where we take scenario training. We say the scenario is home invasion. 3 people are coming into your house, blah, blah, blah. One comes from this side, one has a gun. How do you deal with that? Okay, most people would not know what to do. They would not know where to go, put the lights on, not put the lights on, where to put weapons in the house, what to do, what to clear. They would have no clue. So what you do is you go backward. So the more scenarios you have, you make a plan, and then you have those tactics that fall into what strategies you will take, and then you can apply to the logistics. That's how you do the training. When people go through this type of training, it completely changes them. Okay, I have students that come from all kinds of walk of life. I have law enforcement, I have special forces guys, I have feds, I have housewives, I have lawyers, I have doctors. It changes them. Okay, it changes them into thinking like a warrior, but not in a paranoia way. I've seen a lot of people think, I'm gonna be a warrior, and it takes over. What it does is, it gives them an insurance in life for worst case scenario. For an example, we all get home insurance, car insurance, boat insurance, health insurance. Nobody is taking violence insurance. This type of training gives you insurance. If something happens bad, you have the best coverage to deal with it. That is a confidence booster. All of a sudden you see people that were shy and timid, all of a sudden they walk around like lions. So it changes people on a mode of operation. It gives them that self-confidence that can handle situations that most people cannot. It definitely changes them. Some people come to me to learn how to defend themselves because they think something bad is coming. And they come to me and they never had a gun in their hand in their life. They never had an assault rifle in their hand in their life. They never did anything with knives. In our training, we sometimes use live knives, in other words, real blades. In our training, we use real guns, real assault rifles. So I have people that come to me who would have been terrified to do anything warlike. And today, they shoot, they fight with knives, and it changed them all around. Then I have, those are the people that come to me specifically for self-defense. Then I have people who come to me to be combat fit. And there's a few examples of that. They come to me, I want to get in fighting shape because I heard you Israeli commandos, you have endurance, you have durability. I want to be like you guys, I want to be like a warrior. And you're talking about people that were at least 100 pounds to 150 pounds overweight, all of a sudden are getting in shape, and all of a sudden they feel better about themselves. But what happens is they stay with the system now to learn to be more of a warrior. The fitness part took a second stage because they're already fit, and now they're getting more and more like confident, and they're getting to that point that they feel like they're a real warrior. That happens a lot to me. People come to me to get in shape, but then they fall in love with what we do. When somebody walks into your life, if it's at your house, home invasion, at work, maybe you just went for a walk and some crackhead or somebody on drugs that's completely out of his mind attacks you. When somebody walks into your life at that moment becomes the most important moment in your life. You being the day of your wedding, the day of your kid getting born, everything becomes secondary. It becomes the most important moment of your life. If you are not ready for that moment will haunt you forever if you survive it. If you become a victim to it and get hurt by it, it will break you. In other words, you'll always come back to that moment. But if you overcome that moment, it'll be the opposite. You'll be, I was ready and I'm ready again. So this type of training prepares you for, if it ever happens, that you will be able to handle it mentally first. What happens right before a violent encounter, before a fight, is about 80% is mental. And that 80% is how you harness your stress and how you manage that build-up. Only maybe 20% is physical, up to the actual boom of the violence. The 20% is your body language, how you position yourself, this and that. From the moment the fight is on or the violence broke out, I mean, it's like this, like a blink, like a burst. From the moment it's on, that 80-20 changes. It becomes 80% physical, only 20% mental. And the 20% mental becomes the management of the fight, and the 80% is your durability. In other words, are you conditioned to take the incoming shots while you're fighting? And do you know what to do, like the combatives? Do you know how to engage? Then it becomes physical. So that 80-20 switches like this. And when that switches like this, if you're not ready, it becomes a moment in your life that will haunt you forever. Versus, it became like, I could handle it, I can handle 10 more moments like that.